Yo, what is good YouTube? It's your boy HBoss, and welcome back to my series From Zero to Mastery. Now in this series, I basically document my journey learning a new game, going from being an absolute beginner to hopefully becoming very good at said game, and today we are back playing Melty. In episode 0, I introduced the game to you guys, showed you some of the useful resources for new players, and I rounded off the video showing you guys some of the combos I had recently learned, and reviewing some of the games that I had recently played. In today's video, we are actually going to start learning the game, and to do that, we're going to head over to the wiki. Now, I've been looking over this page for a while, and the specific page I'm talking about and we're going to be discussing in today's video is the Systems and Mechanics page right here. So I will leave this linked in the description below, but this is basically what we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to be doing my best to summarize all the information on this page. However, if you would like a more thorough explanation of all the things discussed in today's video, I would highly recommend giving this page a read for yourself. But with that being said, without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. Alright, my boys, so we are here on the character select menu, or the character select screen, sorry. And when choosing a character, you actually have the choice of crescent moon, half moon, and full moon. And one of the questions we're going to be answering in today's video is what is the difference between the 3 different moon styles. Now, the game does give a short description of each moon style, but if you look at the wiki, you'll see a whole list of different characteristics of each moon style. Now, the differences between the moon styles can be split into 2 categories. So we have character-specific differences, and then we have universal differences. Now, when it comes to character-specific differences, they're quite easy to understand. Essentially, depending on which character you choose, depending on which moon style you choose, that character's moves as well as other properties of the character can change. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a small practical example demonstrating this. So for example, if I choose, sorry about that. Okay, cool. So let's say I pick Akiha Vermilion. And on the left, we're going to have her crescent variant. And on the right, we're going to have her full moon variant. Now, Akiha Vermilion's crescent moon's quarter circle forward looks like this. So as you can see, it's like this flaming strike thingy-majiggy, but her full moon variant looks like that. So I'm doing the same input, quarter circle forward and A, but as you can see, they look very different and they have different properties. So that's pretty much a small example of how, depending on which moon style you choose, your character's moves as well as other properties can change. And so what I would recommend you guys do is just research the differences between your character's moon styles, and hopefully that'll help you pick which moon style to play. Alright, so now that we've covered the character-specific differences of the moon styles, we can actually now move on to the universal differences. Now, in order to understand the universal differences, we actually have to discuss the other mechanics of this game. Otherwise, it's just going to be a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. So we're going to go ahead and just jump into a match, and I'm going to try to demonstrate these different mechanics. And we're going to start off by discussing this concept of meter management. Now, this game, like a lot of other fighting games, has a meter, and that meter can be filled by either hitting your opponent or I think even shielding some of your opponent's attacks. And I believe even if you take a damage, your meter fills up by a little bit. So there's several ways to fill up your meter, and when your meter fills up, it kind of gives you access to a bunch of different things. And the first thing it gives you access to are EX specials. Now, what is an EX special? So we have regular specials. For example, we have this special right here. So this is quarter circle forward A. It looks like that. If I wanted to do an EX special of that move, you need 2 things. You need to be at least 100% meter, and then you just want to do a C variant of whatever special you want to do. So right now, since I just started a match, I automatically have 100%. And if I walk up to my opponent and do quarter circle forward C, so like the C variant of the special, it becomes an EX special. And I think EX specials are just stronger moves. So yeah, so that's the first kind of use for meter. So if you have less than 100%, you can't do an EX special. But if you have at minimum 100% or more, you get access to these EX specials. So that's like the first use of meter in this game. Um, Now, your meter actually allows you to enter a bunch of different modes, which is the next thing we're going to discuss. Alright, so let's go ahead and discuss the different modes that your characters can enter in Melty Blood. Now, the first one we're going to discuss is Max Mode. Now, Max Mode is kind of interesting. First of all, it's only available to Crescent Moon and Full Moon characters. Now, that sounds bad, but in reality, Max Mode isn't like a game-breaking mechanic. And so the fact that Half Moon characters don't have access to it isn't really a big deal at all. Now, how does Max Mode work? So, your Max Mode is something that automatically activates, so you can't manually activate it. And it activates when your character fills their meter completely. So when your character fills their meter to 300%, for example, like Half Moon characters, they only have 200% meter. But since it doesn't really apply to Half Moon characters, we're only looking at Crescent Moon and Full Moon. And Crescent Moon and Full Moon characters have 300%. Now, when you fill up your meter completely, Max Mode will automatically activate. And when you're in Max Mode, you kind of have access to things that you don't normally have access to. And so, one thing it says here are EX and Supers can be performed at a reduced cost. Now, when I tested it out, I don't see how that works. I don't know if the reduced cost is that much or it's just very minimal. I'm not 100% sure. But that's what it said on the wiki, but I'm not really understanding it. So, I'll show you guys right now. So, EX, like I discussed, it takes 100% of your meter. So, theoretically, you can only do 3 of them if you have 300%. But if I quickly go ahead and jump into Max Mode, and I quickly spam them, as you can see, I'm only able to fit 2. So I don't know if it says it reduces the what do you call it? It says it reduces the cost of EX/supers, but I don't know by how much that reduction is, if that makes sense. But that's what the wiki says. So that's the first thing. Max Mode apparently reduces the cost of EX and supers, which I don't know if that's true or not. And if it is, I don't know about how much the reduction is. But actually looking at stuff that I can confirm, Max Mode gives you access to a really cool thing called Arc Drive. Now, Arc Drive is a special move, and the input is half circle forward C. So if I do half circle forward C, or if you want a numpad notation, is 4, 1, 2, 3, 6 C, you get access to that very cool move, which you don't normally have access to. And so that's kind of one property of Max Mode. It gives you access to Arc Drive. Now, as you can see, Max Mode has a time limit, but if you use Arc Drive, Max Mode just ends instantly. So it doesn't matter how much time you have left in Max Mode. If you use Arc Drive, it just ends instantly. So that's kind of one kind of important thing to note. Another important thing to note is the percentage that you're left with once Max Mode ends. And this differs between Full Moon characters and Crescent Moon characters, so just bear with me and just focus up right now. I need to focus. If you're a Full Moon character and Max Mode ends normally, you are left with 100% meter, as you can see right here. Now, if you use an Arc Drive, when Max Mode ends, you'll be left with 0% meter. So again, without Arc Drive, if it ends normally, you're left with 100% meter. But if you use Arc Drive in Max Mode, you are left with 0% meter. Now, if you're a Crescent Moon character, you basically add 100. So if you're a Crescent Moon character and your Max Mode ends and you don't use an Arc Drive, you'll be left with 200% meter. But if you use an Arc Drive in your Max Mode, you'll be left with 100% meter. And that's for Crescent Moon characters. So that's kind of the slight difference between the two. So again, it's kind of confusing, but hopefully that kind of makes sense. And again, that's another important thing to note about Max Mode. And the final thing is that Max Mode gives you access to another mode. So just bear with me. Okay, so the 2 other modes in this game are called Heat Mode and Blood Heat Mode. And they're both quite similar. Blood Heat Mode is basically, as far as my understanding is that Blood Heat Mode is it's just a better version of Heat Mode. And they both kind of have their own useful mechanics that are different to Max Mode. But yeah, so for example, if I jump back in and I enter max mode and I press A, B, and C at the same time, I can then enter blood heat mode. So let me just quickly show you. I go ahead and I enter max mode. If I press A, B, and C at the same time, I can enter blood heat mode, and then I can have fun in blood heat mode and do all the blood heat shenanigans. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for max mode. So again, it doesn't do that many things. To summarize, when you enter max mode, you get access to, or your EX and supers have a reduced cost. Again, I don't know if that's actually true or not. The second thing is that you get access to arc drive, which is half circle forward C, and it's obviously it's a very strong move. And then finally, you have access to blood heat mode, which is performed by doing A, B, and C at the same time. Now, another thing to note is when I entered blood heat mode, my opponent kind of got affected, and I believe that's called a circuit spark. So the wiki says you get access to circuit spark. It doesn't actually say what a circuit spark is or how you do it. So my understanding is that by pressing A, B, and C, I enter this blood heat, and a consequence of entering blood heat is that circuit spark right there, where that kind of it created that shock wave and it hit my opponent. Now that circuit spark has a couple of cool properties, but essentially it's kind of like a get off me tool. If you're in max mode and your opponent's kind of hitting you and you just want them to get off, you can just press A, B, and C, and when you enter blood heat mode, you'll activate a circuit spark, and that your opponent will just kind of fly away. And so that's another cool thing. So that's another thing to just bear in mind. If you're enter max mode, for example, if your opponent's hitting you, like if I hit my opponent or if my opponent hits me, as you can see, I gain a little bit of meter. And so sometimes if you're in a match and you're getting beaten up, but then you enter max mode because they keep hitting you and you're gaining meter, then a good idea is to enter blood heat mode, and by doing so, your opponent will kind of fly away. And so yeah, that's pretty much all there is to know about max mode. Alright, so the next mode we're going to discuss is heat mode. Now, just one important thing to note is that heat mode and blood heat mode are very similar. Blood heat mode essentially is a stronger version of heat mode. Okay, so for heat mode, all three moon types can access it, but the way they access it is very different. So the easiest one is half moon. If you're a half moon character, all you have to do is fill up your meter. So for half moons, they can only get 200%. So if you get 200%, heat mode activates automatically. So unfortunately, you can't manually activate it. However, it's quite easy to remember, right? You just have to get to 200% and it will activate automatically. Now, if you're a crescent moon character, you can access it manually very easily. So in order to enter heat mode for a crescent moon character, you have to you have to be at least 100% meter, and then you just press A, B, and C at the same time. And for full moon, it is so weird. The basic description is you have to be in max mode, and then during a cancelable frame, you have to press A, B, and C at the same time. But the way I understand it is go to max mode, and during a combo, or like hit your opponent, and then straight after you hit them, press A, B, and C at the same time, and you'll enter heat mode. So that's how you enter it. So for half moon characters, it's automatic after you fill up your meter. For crescent moon characters, it's manual, just by pressing A, B, and C when you have over 100% meter. And for full moon characters, you can only access it in max mode. But yeah, that's the three ways you access heat modes for the three different moon styles. Now, what does heat mode actually do? Now, sorry, let me lower the volume. Okay, so what does heat mode actually do? So heat mode has a bunch of different properties. The main really useful one is health recovery. So I think this is really important to discuss. So I changed it so that my Akiha Vermilion is now crescent. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to beat myself up. So I'm just going to, hit myself a couple of times. And now, as you can see, if you look at my health, The yellow bar is the current health I have. Um, but next to it, there's a small red bar, and what that red bar means is that's health that I can actually recover. So right now I don't have it, but if I enter heat mode, I can actually recover that health. So, so I'm gonna enter heat mode now. I have over 100% meter. I'm gonna press A, B, and C at the same time to enter heat mode. Once I enter heat mode, as you can see, that health, that red health, is actually recovering. So that's one really useful thing about heat mode, is that it helps you recover health, and essentially you can live longer because of it. So that's one really important. That's like the main thing. There's a few other things that it does. Unfortunately, I need to build up meter now, so I'll probably cut back to when I actually have meter. Alright, so another thing that I forgot to mention is that for full moon characters, when you enter heat mode, all your red health recovers instantly, whereas for crescent moon characters and half moon characters, it recovers gradually. So you can still only recover that red part, but for full moon, you just get it straight away. But for crescent moon and half moon, you kind of recover it slowly. Another thing about entering heat mode is, I mean, just if you watch kind of really closely, when I enter heat mode, I'm actually going to slam my opponent. So that's also that circuit spark. And if you look at the timer, it's actually paused. And so that timer pauses until my heat mode is finished. And once my heat mode finishes, the timer restarts. So that's two things about heat mode. So again, it allows you to do that circuit spark thing we talked about earlier. So again, if your opponent's really beating you up, and your crescent moon character, for example, and you have over 100%, and you just want them to get away, you can just press A, B, and C at the same time, and you will activate that circuit spark, and they will kind of, it's kind of like a really good get off me tool. So there, that's another thing. And then also, it also pauses the timer for the duration of your heat mode. And finally, the final thing that it does is it gives you access to an upgraded version of Arc Drive, which is called, no, it just gives you access to Arc Drive, sorry. Blood Heat gives you access to an upgraded version of Arc Drive, but regular heat mode just gives you access to the regular Arc Drive, which I'll just show you again. It's the same input as max mode, so it's just half circle forward C. But again, if you enter heat mode, half circle forward C, and you do your Arc Drive. But yeah, so those are like the main things that heat mode does. So just to kind of reiterate, heat mode number 1 allows you to recover health. So that's kind of the most important thing. Number 2, it's a really good get off me tool because it activates a circuit spark, and so your opponent will fly away. Number 3, it pauses the timer. And then number 4, it gives you access to Arc Drive as well. And another thing to remember is that it activates differently for each moon type. For half moon, it's automatic when you fill up your meter. For crescent moon, it's manual. When you can activate it whenever you have over 100%, you just press A, B, and C at the same time. And then for full moon, it's a bit more complicated. You have to be in max mode, and then you have to press A, B, and C after you hit an opponent, and you'll enter heat mode. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about heat mode. So the last mode that we need to discuss is Blood Heat. Now, Blood Heat, luckily for us, is very similar to heat mode. Essentially, it's just a more upgraded version of heat mode. Now, for some reason, weird reason, half moon characters don't have access to Blood Heat. Only crescent and full moon characters have access to Blood Heat. Now, what does Blood Heat actually do? So, Blood Heat, essentially, you get all the benefits of heat mode plus some additional benefits. And those additional benefits are, number 1, instead of Arc Drive, you have a more powerful version called Another Arc Drive. And number 2, you also have access to a very special move called Last Arc, which you can kind of think of as your really strong, your best move available to your character. Now, the inputs for Another Arc Drive are the same as Arc Drive. You just have to do half circle forward C. And then for Another Arc Drive, you kind of have to do like a perfect parry whilst you're in Blood Heat mode, which I'm going to try and demonstrate later. Yeah. So, pretty much, I've kind of summarized all the main features. There are some very small additional details which you guys can look at on the wiki. I think Heat has some damage and defense multipliers for Crescent Moon characters and stuff like that. But I've tried to leave out this video just to make sure it's not too confusing and too much information. But yeah, so far I pretty much told you all the main things that you need to know. Now, how do you access Blood Heat is the next question, and essentially you have to press A, B, and C at the same time whilst you're in max mode. So we're gonna go ahead and enter max mode right now. And once we've entered max mode, I press A, B, and C, and I've entered Blood Heat. And when I'm in Blood Heat, I can do a lot of cool things. So for example, I can do my another arc drive, which as you can see did 19 what do you call it? It did 19 hits. If I compare that to just a regular arc drive, so to do that I need to sorry. Wait, one more time. There we go. So that was my regular arc drive and it did 10 hits, but my another arc drive did 19 hits. So you can see that the damage difference between another arc drive and just regular arc drive is very big. And so yeah, so that's kind of one of the main benefits. You really want to get into Blood Heat because you're able to do a lot more damage when you're in Blood Heat. Now I'm gonna quickly go ahead and charge back up. Now I'm gonna try to go ahead and show you how to do last arc. Now I've never actually done it, so this will be my first try. But essentially what you want to do is press the C button whilst in Blood Heat, and whilst your opponent is hitting you. So I'm gonna go ahead and activate Heat max mode. I'm gonna go into Blood Heat, and I'm gonna go ahead and there we go. So my opponent attacked me, and at the exact moment my opponent attacked me, I pressed C, which is the shield button, or the guard button, and yeah, well, if you do that and you time it right, you get access to the last arc, which is a very powerful move. And as you can see, it did like half my opponent's health, so it's crazy. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that pretty much summarizes the 3 different modes: max mode, heat mode, and Blood Heat mode. Alright, so whilst covering the 3 different modes, you probably already picked up on a lot of the differences between the moon styles. Now, there are other differences between them, and those are with regards to other mechanics in the game. But unfortunately, I haven't had time to cover those mechanics, so I'm not going to be able to include them in this video. But I did want to quickly mention them. The first one is the concept of reverse beat, which is pretty simple. So in this game, a very simple combo is A, B, and C, and which is called beat, or like regular beat or whatever. And then you can do reverse beat, which is C, B, A. So like heavy, medium, light. But only crescent and half moon characters can do that. Full moon characters cannot. So that's another difference. And then the other differences between the 3 moon styles are with regards to like some of the movement mechanics and the kind of more defensive mechanics. So for example, dodging and air dash canceling. And then we have like shielding and shield counter and shield bunker, and then something called an EX guard. So those are like a few things that I haven't covered in my own time. So I'm going to go ahead and do is learn them, and then hopefully I'll be able to include them in the next video. But apart from that, I think that really summarizes the differences between the moon styles. And yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you guys smash the like button and subscribe because new videos are coming soon. And yeah, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead, learn more about the game, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.